Hi guys, and welcome to Studio Wildlife. In this video I'm going to talk to you about how I drew this leopard in charcoal. The paper that I'm using is just plain mountboard. I like using mountboard because it doesn't buckle as much when I do the acetone in later stages of my painting or my drawing process. For this one I traced the image onto the paper. I didn't really want to trace too much, I just did the basic proportions. I didn't go into detail with the shapes of the spots, and then I freehand drew in the remaining spots and the patterns of that leopard's coat with a charcoal pencil. You can see me here just using the charcoal pencil to do all the black and the dark spots. I use the charcoal pencil around the eyes, the nose, the mouth, all the darkest details, which I'm later going to blend over with a blending stump and some powdered charcoal. I always like to keep my pencil looking very sharp, and I sometimes hold my pencil to the side to change the variation or change and add some variation to my drawings. So I don't just want sharp pointed lines all the way through. Sometimes I want thicker lines and I hold my pencil at the side and use the side of the nib instead of using it pointed down. So here you can see me using powdered charcoal, and I just use that to add a tone to the paper and add some abstract shapes. I then use a blending stump dipped in some charcoal to add some of the darker areas. I'll then refine the piece using a kneaded eraser and an eraser pencil. I do this to pick out the areas of highlights and add some of the whiter fur details. Some people ask if I use a gel roller or a pen or paint when I do my white hairs, but no, most of the time it is just the kneaded eraser or the pencil eraser. So you can see me here working on the fur and a little bit of the background. So what I've got here is just a cheap spray, and in that spray it's got acetone, or in my case it's got nail polish remover that contains acetone. This isn't the best, but it was all I had to hand. All I do is spray it onto the canvas or onto the paper, and that loose charcoal powder that I applied earlier will spread around and drip and create these splash effects. I'll create a full detailed video on this later. So here you can see the progress so far. I've not quite finished, there's still some final touches to be made. So what I tend to do next is take some loose charcoal powder and use a brush to distribute it around the page. And at this point, my paper is now flat on the desk instead of being upright on the easel. I do this so that charcoal powder stays on the page and just doesn't fall off onto the ground. At this stage I apply that charcoal powder quite liberally. I really want to darken the page. I really want to see some abstract splash marks and drips. So I'm using this 1-inch brush and just dipping it in the charcoal powder and spreading that charcoal powder around the page, and not really thinking about where it's going too much, just thinking about the areas that I want dark and the areas that I want light. Once I spray the acetone over the top, it's going to completely change the look of this anyway. When I'm thinking about the areas that I want dark and the areas that I want light, I'm thinking about the composition and I'm thinking about the areas of the leopard or the area of the whatever I'm trying to draw that is light. So I try to match a dark background to a lighter bit of the leopard. This allows me to establish the shape and the form of the leopard or the animal without me needing to draw a line and create physical structures. The difference between the light background or the dark background and the light and the dark of the leopard or the subject creates that edge for me. I finish off this bit by just sprinkling some charcoal powder in places that I feel like it would look good. I do this by dipping the brush and then just tapping it to release some of that loose charcoal. I've missed out a step here where I sprayed with acetone again. At this point I did lie it flat still and sprayed downwards to make sure I didn't get any more drips. All you can see me doing here is using a small stump of vine charcoal to add some more abstract dark marks. I kind of like these uniform, almost square, horizontal and vertical lines. I feel like it adds a little bit more abstractness to it, and it sort of bounces on the fact that my piece is quite natural. It's from the natural world. The drips and the splashes are quite natural, but those sharp edges and those squares and those straight lines that I'm adding with the charcoal sort of really complements the natural flow of the rest of the picture. So to finish off, all I'm doing is adding in the whiskers, and again, just like with the fur, I use the putty eraser, or the kneaded eraser as it's sometimes called, to add in those lighter regions. As it's not a very big piece, it's only 29cm by 29cm, I can't really get much detail with the whiskers. Larger pieces, the kneaded eraser works brilliantly. For this piece, I may even go over those whiskers with a white charcoal pencil, which is what you can see me doing here. So I'm using that white charcoal pencil just to add a few loose strands and a few finer details for those white regions. So I'm just adding those loose whiskers, not going into loads of detail, not bothering too much, not being too precise, just adding them over the top of those lighter marks and adding a few whiskers or hairs, loose strands of hairs above the eye sockets. I do the final touch-ups of the ear, adding some of those loose white hairs, and then it's pretty much finished at this point. This is where I'm going to call it and I'm going to leave it. What I was considering doing was adding some gold leaf to this, which is something I might still do. I'm not too sure yet whether I'm going to do it or not. I'll see what you guys think and let me know whether I should add that gold leaf or not. So here's the finished painting, or drawing, whatever you want to call it. It's a bit of a combination of the two, I guess. It's charcoal on 29cm by 29cm mount board. As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, if you want more wildlife art tips, head to studiowildlife.com.